Sam Elliott, the rugged voice of Hollywood, the commanding presence on every screen he graces, the man whose roles have become timeless icons. For decades, he's been seen as untouchable, a force of nature in the film industry. But behind the legendary mustache and gravelly tone, recent revelations show a side of Elliott fans have never seen before, a story that challenges the invincible image we've long admired. For decades, Sam Elliott has been the embodiment of strength, grit, and timeless charisma, a figure who seemed immune to the passage of time. But now, shocking new developments have emerged, leaving fans uneasy and raising serious questions about the road ahead for this Hollywood icon. Elliott's journey to stardom is as remarkable as his on-screen presence. With his unmistakable baritone, rugged looks, and an aura that commands attention without demanding it, he became the actor Hollywood turns to for roles defined by authenticity, toughness, and undeniable gravitas. Sam Elliott's career spans decades, leaving an indelible mark on generations of viewers. What sets his story apart isn't just his longevity in Hollywood, but the way he consistently chose roles that resonated, creating characters that lingered long after the credits rolled. Each chapter of his life and career builds on the last, painting a portrait of a man who stayed fiercely true to himself while delivering performances that became unforgettable. Elliott was born on August 9, 1944, in Sacramento, California. The rugged landscapes of California, with its sweeping horizons and frontier spirit, seemed to foreshadow the qualities he would later embody on screen. Growing up in the post-war era, he was immersed in a culture dominated by westerns, stories that shaped notions of masculinity, honor, and resilience. These early influences would leave an indelible mark on his approach to acting. Yet, the path to Hollywood stardom was far from guaranteed. By the late 1960s, Elliott began carving his place in the industry, making his first appearance in the 1967 film The Way West, a humble beginning that would spark a legendary career defined by grit, authenticity, and timeless presence. The film showcased a cast of seasoned stars and narrated the tale of pioneers facing the challenges of the Oregon Trail. For Elliott, this initial role was modest yet meaningful. It provided him with his first glimpse into the film industry and, more crucially, it acquainted him with the Western genre, which would play a pivotal role in shaping his identity as an actor. Just 2 years later, in 1969, Elliott secured his first credited role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Although he wasn't one of the main characters in the film, his participation in such a groundbreaking production was a significant milestone. The film became a classic in American cinema, and Elliott's name became associated with a project that would be cherished for generations. Elliott's determination bore fruit in the 1970s as his career began to flourish in substantial ways. In 1972, he starred in Frogs, a horror film that depicted nature retaliating against humanity. While the film itself may not have been destined for greatness, it represented another crucial step for Elliott, enabling him to take on a leading role and demonstrate to audiences that he could carry a film. 4 years later, in 1976, he starred in Lifeguard, a film that placed him at the heart of a profoundly human narrative. Portraying Rick Carlson, a lifeguard grappling with issues of identity and the passage of time, Elliott infused the character with vulnerability and depth. Critics lauded his performance, and audiences resonated with the character's struggles. Lifeguard signified a turning point, propelling Elliott from minor roles to a leading man deserving of recognition. The late 1970s through the 1980s marked a period of consistent growth for Elliott. During these years, he became a well-known figure on television, featuring in shows like Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible, and Hawaii 5. These roles allowed him to hone his skills while gaining acclaim among television viewers. At a time when television and film often existed in separate worlds, Sam Elliott effortlessly bridged the divide, carving a space for himself in both. On TV, he proved his versatility, seamlessly moving between action-packed adventures, suspenseful dramas, and classic westerns. Each role reinforced his reliability, establishing him as an actor audiences and producers could trust to deliver, no matter the medium. The 1980s solidified his reputation on the big screen. In 1985's Mask, Elliott portrayed Gar, a motorcycle rider with a tender heart, opposite Cher. Through subtlety and warmth, he revealed layers beyond his rugged exterior, proving he could balance toughness with deep humanity. 4 years later, he fully embraced his iconic persona in Roadhouse as Wade Garrett, the seasoned bouncer and mentor to Patrick Swayze's character. Tough, wise, and commanding, Elliott owned the role, cementing his image as Hollywood's embodiment of experience and grit. Though Roadhouse wasn't a critical darling, it became a cult classic, with Elliott's performance standing out as a key reason for its lasting appeal. In 1993, he reached another career peak in Tombstone, one of the most celebrated westerns of the modern era. As Virgil Earp, he brought gravitas, strength, and an unshakable sense of loyalty to the legendary lawman's brother, grounding the film and elevating its emotional weight. By this point, Sam Elliott's presence had grown so commanding that he no longer needed to dominate every scene. His deep voice, steady demeanor, and effortless authenticity spoke volumes, proving that true charisma requires no theatrics, only conviction. Tombstone solidified his role as a pivotal figure in advancing the Western tradition. The 1990s brought another significant moment for Elliott. In 1998, he took on the role of the stranger in The Big Lebowski, a mysterious cowboy character who narrates and guides the story in his unique style. Despite having limited screen time, Elliott crafted a character that became iconic. The stranger's serene voice, philosophical insights, and cowboy wisdom made him one of the film's standout features. The Big Lebowski itself evolved into a cult classic, cherished by fans around the globe, and Elliott's portrayal was instrumental in its lasting appeal. For many younger viewers who encountered him through this film, the stranger served as their initial introduction to Sam Elliott's distinctive charm. Sam Elliott's 2022 backlash. Sam Elliott was born on August 9, 1944, in Sacramento, California. From a young age, his deep voice and rugged demeanor distinguished him from his peers. Growing up in California, Elliott was drawn to the expansive landscapes and imagery of the American West, which later became the cornerstone of his Hollywood persona. Unlike many actors who find their way into the profession later in life, Elliott appeared to be destined for it. His authentic persona aligned perfectly with the types of roles that would define his career, men of quiet strength, conviction, and resilience. This early start laid the groundwork for what would develop into one of the most unique careers in film and television. His foray into Hollywood began in the late 1960s, a period when the Western genre was still thriving but starting to evolve. Elliott's film debut occurred in 1967 with The Way West. Although it was an uncredited role that didn't immediately catapult him to fame, it marked the first step in establishing his presence in the industry. In 1969, Sam Elliott earned his first credited role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Though brief, sharing the screen in such an iconic Western gave him a foothold in Hollywood and showcased the undeniable presence that would become his trademark. Even in a small role, he stood out, hinting at the star power that was quietly taking shape. The 1970s became the decade where Elliott began forging his unique screen identity. In 1972, he appeared in the genre-bending horror film Frogs, reflecting the experimental spirit of the era. But his true breakthrough came in 1976 with Lifeguard. Stepping into a leading role, Elliott revealed a quiet charisma and a commanding ability to carry a story, blending rugged masculinity with genuine emotional depth. Critics may have viewed the film as modest, but audiences recognized a rising star whose appeal was both magnetic and relatable. Through the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Elliott built a career defined by consistency and versatility. Unlike many who fade after early success, he established a steady rhythm, moving fluidly between film and television. On the small screen, appearances in series such as Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible, and Hawaii Five-0 allowed him to demonstrate his adaptability while solidifying his reputation as a reliable and compelling presence in any role he took on. At the same time, his cinematic career gave his resume significant depth. He starred in the heartwarming drama Mask in 1985, which revealed a more sensitive side to his on-screen persona. Elliott was no longer limited to straightforward Western stereotypes by that point. He has demonstrated his ability to play nuanced roles. His profile was considerably raised in the late 1980s. In 1989, Elliott co-starred with Patrick Sees in Roadhouse, a performance that perfectly complemented his gritty image. After this, he played Virgil Herp in Tombstone in 1993, which was another important role. With its ensemble of gritty characters, Elliott's performance was a natural fit for the film, which went on to become one of the most acclaimed modern westerns. Tombstone is still regarded by many admirers as a pivotal moment in his career, solidifying his status as one of the greatest contemporary western actors. However, Elliott has demonstrated his ability to go outside the genre. He narrated and led the audience through the bizarre tale in the 1998 film The Big Lebowski as the stranger, a position that has since come to represent him. With his distinctive voice connecting the whole movie, Elliott's character was both enigmatic and grounded. Despite getting poor reviews at first, The Big Lebowski became a cult favorite, and Elliott's contribution was crucial to its enduring appeal. For a performer who was already well known for his somber roles, this eccentric and pensive persona showed a new and noteworthy aspect of his work. Elliott had solidified his reputation as a dependable supporting actor and a cultural icon whose influence went well beyond the screen by the end of the 1990s. Even though Elliott's career was characterized by powerful, well-liked parts, his path also shone that he was never reluctant to voice his opinions. That became particularly evident in 2022, decades later, when he made headlines for his vocal criticism of Jane Campion's award-winning film, The Power of the Dog, rather than for a performance. When Elliott dubbed the movie a piece of S***T during an appearance on Mark Moron's WTF podcast, it immediately caused a lot of controversy. His critique focused on how the movie portrayed masculinity in the Western genre and how it portrayed homosexuality. All of the Fing cowboys in that film are dressed like that, galloping around in chaps and no shirts. Throughout the film, there are numerous false impressions of homosexuality, Elliott explained. The representation, in Elliott's opinion, was unauthentic and went against the Western culture he had long represented. He went one step farther and questioned if Campion could recount the story in a truthful way. What the F*** does this woman from down there in New Zealand know about the American West? He asked, praising her skill as a brilliant director but also objecting to the choice of filming location, criticizing the use of New Zealand as a stand-in for Montana. The entertainment industry was rocked by the comments. In response, Jane Campion pointedly said that Elliott is an actress and not a cowboy, calling his remarks somewhat misogynistic. Her defense brought to light the more general idea that, like any other art form, the Western genre is open to interpretations that go against the grain. The movie star Benedict Cumberbatch also offered his thoughts, stressing the value of using narrative to examine toxic masculinity and pointing out that Elliott's response represented a generational conflict over what a Western could or ought to be. The extraordinary legacy of Elliott. Sam Elliott has shown over the years that his talent and popularity transcended genres and decades. With a string of roles that demonstrated his ability to adjust to changing storytelling approaches while retaining the gritty reality that characterized his career, Elliott, who had already made a name for himself as a reliable and powerful presence in both television and movies, ushered in the new millennium. He provided his unique voice to the animated comedy Barnyard in 2006, which exposed him to younger viewers who might not have known about his previous work. His rich, powerful voice, which was instantly recognizable, gave the character a sense of authority and humor, demonstrating that Elliott's presence was felt even in animation. His range was further extended in the ensuing years. Based on Philip Pullman's book, Elliott starred in the 2007 fantasy adventure movie The Golden Compass. Although reviews for the film were mixed, Elliott's performance was particularly noteworthy. He was able to bridge the gap between the increasingly popular fantasy genre and classic Hollywood narrative by bringing even the most fanciful storylines down to earth with authenticity. Then, in 2009, Elliott starred with George Clooney in the film Up in the Air. The movie, which addressed issues of personal connection and business downsizing, showcased yet another aspect of Elliott's adaptability. He was able to make an impact even in supporting parts, which strengthened his standing as an actor who added depth to every movie he worked on. As Elliott balanced commercial and personal endeavors, his consistent presence persisted far into the following 10 years. He made a comeback to voice acting in 2015, this time in The Good Dinosaur from Pixar. His involvement gave the movie a depth that was entirely consistent with his well-established character. Elliott demonstrated that his voice alone could convey a character's emotional weight and engage audiences of all ages, just like in his previous animation work. His involvement in a wide range of movies, from dramatic features to family animation, demonstrated how his career was never static but rather always evolving. Elliott discovered a new platform between 2015 and 2017 that allowed him to reintroduce himself to viewers in a novel way. He co-starred with Ashton Kutcher in the comedy-drama series The Ranch on Netflix. Elliott was able to combine humor with the rugged reality that had always characterized him because to his role in the show. It proved that his skills would fit right in with streaming entertainment, which was fast emerging as the next big thing in narrative. Elliott starred in The Hero 2017 around the same time, a role that would garner him a lot of praise from critics. The picture, which looked to be a perfect fit for Elliott, followed an elderly Western performer as he reflected on his life and legacy. His ability to draw from his personal experiences and add a degree of sincerity that struck a deep chord with viewers was praised by numerous critics. This performance wasn't your typical one. It seemed to be an introspective comment about celebrity, aging, and meaning. When Elliott achieved a milestone in 2018 that many had long thought he deserved, that momentum continued. He co-starred with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born, for which he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Cooper's character's older brother, Bobby Maine, was portrayed by Elliott in a subtle yet impactful way. His scenes, especially those that addressed family strife and the intricacies of brotherly ties, were frequently subdued yet intensely emotional. Decades of commitment to his profession were acknowledged by the nomination, which confirmed that Elliott was not just a well-known actor but also a highly regarded performer whose work had made a lasting impression on the business. The Oscar nomination seemed like a long overdue recognition of his contributions to filmmaking to both critics and fans. After that high point in his career, Elliott maintained his relevance in the field by accepting new challenges and taking on tasks that played to his skills. He played Shay Brennan in the Yellowstone prequel series 1883 in 2021. Elliott was thrust back into the center of the Western genre, where he had always thrived, with this performance. However, 1883 offered a more complex and somber viewpoint than the early Westerns of his career, and Elliott was up to the challenge. His performance of Brennan, a rugged, resolute man who guides families over the perilous American frontier, received accolades for its emotional resonance and depth. Elliott became one of the most successful performers of his generation after receiving a Screen Actors Guild Award for his efforts. In addition to reminding viewers of his long-standing ties to Western heritage, this part demonstrated that Elliott was still capable of producing powerful performances decades into his career. Elliott's career continued to grow even when he entered his late 70s and early 80s. He was still as committed to performing as ever. It was also revealed in 2025 that he will be joining the cast of the Paramount Plus series Landman. Interestingly, fans were really excited when Elliott was revealed as a series regular for the second season of the show. There was excitement about what their partnership would offer to the series because the project brought him and Billy Bob Thornton, another actor with a distinctive on-screen persona, back together. For Elliott, this new position was a continuation of his ongoing significance in contemporary storytelling rather than merely another endeavor. He continued to be a sought-after performer who could attract audiences and give standout performances even after spending decades in Hollywood. The unusual political beliefs of Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott has always been known for his strong presence, tough appearance, and most importantly, his distinctive voice. It has narrated innumerable movies, played the part of well-known characters, and even influenced the tone of advertisements and documentaries. In a startling and surprising development, Elliott's voice is now being heard in American politics. Elliott, who is most known for his roles in dramas and westerns, has dabbled in political activism on occasion in the past, but this recent action may be his most audacious to date. By lending his voice to a recent Lincoln Project advertisement, Elliott is directly addressing misogyny in voting practices with his unique manner. Elliott addresses voters directly in the Lincoln Project ad, something that not many political advertisements dare to do. He does not soften or use cautious language when narrating. Rather, it is tinged with unapologetic directness and occasional profanity. Elliott urges voters to put aside their long-standing biases and back Kamala Harris in her bid to become the first female president of the United States. His remarks are more than just advice. They provide a problem. Why in the world are you waiting? With direct honesty that cuts through the cacophony, he asks. For if it's the woman, it's time to go on. Change and hope are long overdue. Voting for a woman is time to act like a man. This comment is powerful not just because of what is said but also because of the speaker. Elliott's voice has come to represent power, heritage, and sincerity. Hearing him convey such a message has significance beyond ordinary political discourse. Elliott doesn't skirt the subject of sexism in politics by confronting the prejudices that certain voters might harbor. Rather, he exposes it for what it is and calls on Americans to abandon their antiquated beliefs. Over the past 4 years, the Lincoln Project has established a reputation for delivering incisive, unyielding political messages, but combining their methodology with Elliott's voice adds a level of cultural authority that is difficult to overlook. Elliott has already voiced his opinions in a political setting. He provided the voiceover for a 2020 campaign ad for Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee at the time. That advertisement sent a different message, one that was more grounded in custom and individuality. Elliott supported a politician at the time whose public image reflected some of his own. A white guy who had been well known for decades, he had finally attained a moment of prominence in his latter years. Although Elliott made a substantial contribution to that campaign, it was in keeping with the perception that many people already had of him. He was supporting someone who appeared to be akin to the kinds of characters he had long played on cinema. But the dynamic is different this time. Elliott has also changed his tone to reflect President Biden's 2024 resignation and his support for Vice President Kamala Harris as his favorite successor. The stakes are different, as the new Lincoln Project advertisement makes evident. Voters who previously backed Biden are now being urged by Elliott to do the same for Harris. Regardless of any personal uneasiness or prejudices people might have about supporting a woman, he does not hold back from outright calling out the barrier, sexism. For the sake of the future of the nation, his speech urges voters to acknowledge and overcome their prejudices. Elliott's voice emphasizes the importance of the impending election, which emphasizes this point in the advertisement. Before highlighting a stark difference between the candidates, he says, "You know what's at stake. One stands for progress, while the other promises a divided America full of hate and lies." He frames the decision in harsh terms with straightforward yet impactful phrases. The possibility of more divide under Donald Trump, the Republican nominee once again, is on the one hand. Elliott portrays Kamala Harris, the opposing candidate, as having greater bravery, honor, and guts than this man ever possessed. There is little room for doubt in Elliott's delivery, and the contrast is obvious. It is clear how the Lincoln Project used Elliott's voice. They are addressing voters who might have been hesitant to back Harris in 2020 but might have felt at ease backing Biden. By portraying the decision as both morally and logically sound, the advertisement aims to close that gap. This message is conveyed through Elliott's voice, which has a worn authority. It goes beyond simply endorsing a candidate. It involves getting above one's own prejudices in order to make a choice that represents advancement. Elliott purposefully uses rough language. He exclaims, "I can't believe we're having this conversation again," with noticeable annoyance. So, here we go. The tone and structure of the advertisement convey the urgency of the situation. Elliott's voiceover serves as the emotional backbone as the footage alternates between black and white shots of Trump and more upbeat pictures of Harris. He does not sound like a disinterested storyteller. They are often raw, incisive, and personal. His commentary goes so far into obscene territory at one point that it guarantees the advertisement won't be shown on broadcast television. You make the decision: are we actually heading back down the same path, or are we making progress? Although the word choice may be debatable, it captures the gravity of Elliott's point. He's not just telling a story. He is calling on voters to consider the country's future critically. It is impossible to overstate the significance of Elliott's voice in this situation. For many years, viewers have connected him with resilient, wise, and strong people. The advertisement draws on a rich cultural reservoir by addressing voters about sexism and bigotry with that same voice. It conveys the idea that this is not your typical campaign moment. We are at a fork in the road. The advertisement presents the election as a test of values rather than a decision on policy. According to Elliott, America's advancement hinges on its capacity to put prejudices aside and accept the prospect of a female president. There is a sense of continuity in Elliott's activism when this new chapter is linked to his prior political engagement in 2020. He was behind Biden at the time, a man who shared his familiarity and tenacity. He is now requesting that those same voters continue to have faith in Harris in 2024, despite the fact that she stands for something that is unfamiliar to them. His readiness to change his allegiance emphasizes the notion that devotion should be based on the values at issue rather than on outward appearances or comfort zones. This message is condensed into a challenge that transcends political party boundaries and individual hesitancy by Elliott's direct reminder that it's time to be a man and vote for a woman. Sam Elliott's apology in 2022. Sam Elliott's career, which is based on sincerity, perseverance, and a voice that millions of people can recognize, has been full of both triumphant and introspective times. He came into the 2020s with the same acerbic and unvarnished honesty that has long characterized him after decades of work in television and film. However, his frank critique of Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog in early 2022 caused a stir. Widespread controversy resulted from his scathing comments regarding the movie's depiction of masculinity and his doubts about Campion's legitimacy as a New Zealander helming a Western. At the same time as his defenders demand his honesty, others saw his words as unnecessarily harsh and dismissive, in particular of the film's topics of sexuality and identification. For an actor who had so often embodied the rugged conventional cowboy archetype, his feedback raised questions about how one's ideals translate into modern cinematic storytelling. However, Elliott did no longer allow the controversy linger without response. Via April 2022, he chose to without delay cope with the issue at some stage in and Look at Time Limits Contenders television panel for the collection 1883. Sitting before an target market of journalists and fellow industry experts, Elliott took a reflective tone, providing an unreserved apology for the comments that had prompted so much controversy handiest weeks in advance. His phrases have been clear, calm, and carried the equal sincerity that had long been a part of his public photo. I wasn't very articulate about it, Elliott admitted, acknowledging that his choice of phrases and delivery have been blunt and, in his own estimation, careless. He went on to mention, I said some things that harm human beings, and that I feel terrible about that. This moment showed a specific side of Elliott. As opposed to doubling down or brushing off the backlash, he leaned into accountability. In an international in which public figures often select defensiveness, Elliott's apology became direct and rooted in humility. He specifically referred to his remorse at offending the LGBTQ+ community, a collection he emphasized had continually shown him support and kindness for the duration of his lengthy profession. The gay network has been first-rate to me my complete career, he stated. And that I mean my complete profession, from before I were given started in this metropolis. Buddies on each stage, in each activity description up until nowadays. With the one's words, Elliott made clean that he did no longer want to be remembered for pushing people away or undermining the honor of communities that had lengthily embraced him. Elliott also took time for the duration of the apology to redirect interest closer to the human beings in the back of The Power of the Dog. He praised director Jane Campion, describing her as a filmmaker of massive talent and commended the Forged for his or her exceptional performances, specifically Benedict Cumberbatch, whose role as Phil Burbank had been central to the movie's acclaim. This acknowledgement not simplest helped soften the impact of his earlier criticism, but additionally reinforced his true admire for the craft of storytelling. I can best say that I am sorry, he emphasized once more, noting that his in advance words did not deliver the honor he honestly felt. His phrases additionally reaffirmed the belief that an apology, when delivered sincerely, can deliver as lots weight because the unique offense. Elliott's voice, so often related to film narrations, Western epics, and unforgettable characters, carried into this second of contrition. Listening to him say in his own words, "I wasn't articulate and that I sensed terrible approximately that," gave the apology an added layer of credibility. His voice, depended on by way of generations of movie-goers, gave weight to the message of duty.